Welcome to the Retro Lists podcast. As we try to list the best and worst of yesteryear, the language can occasionally be a bit fruity, so sensitive souls might want to cover their ears. Now, without further ado, here are the Retro List partners in time, Adam and Keith.
Hello and welcome to the third episode of Retro Lists with me, Keith A. Pearson, and my partner in time, Adam Eccles.
Hello. Good morning, Keith. How are you doing?
We're okay. I thought we said we weren't going to ever ask that question of one another.
Oh yeah, that's
You've
right.
already broken a covenant.
I don't actually care. Yeah.
No. And I don't care to tell you.
Yeah, there you go.
But seeing as you asked,
yeah, go on.
I think I should probably apologise that I can feel the slightest hint of early onset man flu. So, listeners,
That's a shame.
Firstly, apologies if you hear the odd sniffle, cough, or any other bodily noise that we'd rather you didn't hear. But let me throw that question back to you. Have you had we should apologise for the delay in getting this episode out. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it?
It's been a while because work schedules and general life, it's hard to find time. I've been travelling and working, and work is just a bit of a stress at the moment, but yeah, it's okay. But yeah, otherwise healthy, I suppose. I have had what's the word?
An epiphany.
Yes, I've had writer's block for a little while, and that's, as everyone can imagine, that's really painful, and you have to go, what's the word, you have to go work it out with a pencil. But no, so I've been unable to write for a little while, and it gets annoying, right? Like every day you don't write, you feel more and more annoyed at yourself, and
the pressure builds, doesn't it? Which doesn't help.
Goes round in circles then, so, and then that also makes you not be able to write more, so I tried to chill out, and what I try and do is like listen to a load of audiobooks or music, or go for a long drive or something like that, all the normal stuff that you're supposed to do, but none of it was helping, right? But long story short, or long story long, is that I had this epiphany the other day. And so now I have the bones of a plan for a new book. So that will be coming, I suppose, at some point in the future. I don't know.
Don't commit.
What point? No commitment, but it will happen. I'm amidst the sort of research and planning stage at the moment. So look out for more information coming soon, I suppose, right? So I won't say what book it is yet, because that's not all locked down yet, but coming episodes probably will have more information, so I'm happy about that. It makes it, now once you've got a sort of idea and a plan, it's easier to get excited about it, other than just sort of staring into a void of a blank white page and having more and more anxiety about it, right?
I was trying to explain what that's like to somebody who doesn't write, and the best example, it's like when somebody says, "Oh, do you remember that person that was in that thing?" And you sit there and you think and you think and you think, and then nothing comes, and then 2 days, 3 days later, that name just pops into your head. And I think it's similar. You've just got to let it ride out, really. There's nothing you can actually do. I mean, I agree, going for walks and all that sort of stuff. Is it useful? Probably clears a lot of junk out of your head, but anyway, that's good news. So we don't know when, we don't know what, we don't know how, but it's going to happen.
That's right.
Excellent.
So I'm sure that's thrilling for everybody.
Retro List, the most informative podcast. Basically, Adam saying he knows fuck all.
I know I've got a tiny chunk of information, but I'm not going to tell anyone.
Excellent. Well, I've been doing editing. Yeah, and trying to explain that to someone. So you take 100,000 word manuscript and you have to go through it line by line, not just once, twice, 3, 4 times. And it's, I suppose, the best way of explaining the tedium of it. It's, imagine cutting your lawn with a pair of nail scissors,
Yeah.
and then you go over
Yes.
it, and then you spend days going over it, and then you go back and you look at it and go, oh, missed a bit, or that bit's not right, or it's not even, whatever. So you then go back over it again with your nail scissors, and you just repeat that until you basically want to gouge your own eyes out.
Familiar with that. Yeah, I mean, you've done it more than I have, right? But yes, agree. And because you're doing it so close up, so finely, you don't see the bigger picture then. So then you have to also sort of zoom out and think about
Absolutely.
the whole chapter and the whole story arc and the whole plot, right? And does that all still make sense? And have you kept the voice throughout and things like that? It's bloody hard, this writing shit, you know.
I know. Who knew?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I think it's one of those things that people say, "Oh, is it hard to write a book?" Actually, writing a book isn't hard.
Writing a good book is hard.
Writing something that people actually want to read and you want to stick
That's
your
it.
name to, that's a bit more tricky.
Yes.
Anyway, I think enough of our writing-related woes.
Right.
Anything else that we need to talk about? I think we should probably give a shout out to Brian on Facebook,
Hello,
who was very kind enough to say how much he enjoys the podcast. So thank you very much, Brian. Sure, lots of other people have said stuff, but we're so ill prepared on this episode that we'll have to follow those up another time. And we have. I think we are trying to keep this in, trying to reduce the actual time of the podcast. So we're trying not to have too much of a preamble, but we will no doubt fail in that mission.
Well, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll cut out the whole bit about me. The bit that isn't here yet.
The bit that you reveal nothing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that possibly won't be much of a loss, but
Anyway,
right. Should we crack on?
Let's do it.
Once again, I'm so ill prepared that I've actually forgot what the question is this episode.
It is.
Do you have it to hand?
It's something like whatever happened to ...
Yes. Whatever happened to. So I think this is aspects of life in, say, the 70s and 80s that just drifted from consciousness. So lots of different things. We've had a few thrown at us on Twitter, but I think we've both come up with a fairly solid list of 3 items each. So I guess it's down to you, sir, to kick us off.
So, picture the scene, if you will. It's a wet and cold October Tuesday, and PE class is cross-country running. And so consequently, of course, you're at home sick on the couch watching Blockbusters with Bob Holness. And obviously you're laughing at the "can I have a pee please, Bob?" But so you're doing all of that because obviously you're not going to be doing the cross-country run in the pissing rain and freezing. Sod that. So you're off sick. But what happened in those days when you were off sick? You got Lucozade. Lucozade. So whatever happened to drinking Lucozade when you're sick?
Medicinal purposes.
Yeah. So I did a bit of research on this. Lucozade was first created as Glucozade in the UK in 1927 by a Newcastle pharmacist, William Walker Hunter, and they were trading as W. Owen and Son. Later acquired by Beecham's, but it was sold as an energy drink for the sick. It was literally geared towards sick people. Don't know why. But the advertising slogan was Lucozade aids recovery.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Mostly sold in pharmacies up until the 80s. And then they changed the campaign to Lucozade replaces lost energy. But, I mean, let's think about that for a second, right? It's an energy drink, basically. The original one, perhaps. Before the days of Red Bull and Monster and all that other stuff. But it was, I suppose, like every kind of weird drink that's dreamed up in an apothecary. Like it's like God knows what they put in that first batch. Do they put cocaine in there or?
Can you imagine trying to? If somebody had never tasted Lucozade before, can you explain to them what it tastes like?
Yeah, I don't know actually. It's well, the original one, right? Not the crap that they sell now. But the original Lucozade.
There is only one Lucozade. I think we can agree on that, which is the original and by far the best, and should be served at room temperature from a glass bottle.
That's it, a glass bottle.
Yeah, with cellophane, orange cellophane.
Yeah. The bottle wasn't orange. The stuff inside was orange, but the bottle had these little dimples all over the top of it. Don't know why. I suppose for grip, for her pleasure. And then it was wrapped in like this huge swath of orange cellophane.
No one knows why.
No,
it does seem I never thought about it up until now, but it did seem an expensive addition to the production process when you think about it. But it
unnecessary.
Yeah,
but,
but it was one of those things you only ever had. I mean, you would never come home from school on a regular day and go, "Oh, I'm thirsty. What I want is a glass of Lucozade." It was only ever served during times.
It's a medicine, effectively.
Yeah, but you know, quite a nice tasting medicine in a weird way.
So, I mean, at some point, then they obviously thought that this market was too small. Like sick people maybe were dying out.
Well, we're saying sick people. We're talking about skiving, really.
Yeah, skivitis. Yeah, obviously.
People suffering from man flu and skiving children.
But that market isn't good enough. So I think they changed their campaigns and plan towards, I suppose, sports people doing sports and who need that energy and all that sort of thing. And then it just became a sort of default next to all the Coke and the Fanta and all the rest of it.
And they started bringing out all sorts of different flavors, and they do a still version, an isotonic bullshit, obviously. Somebody don't tell me it's not
isotonic.
Now. Yeah,
I don't even know what. Does anybody know what that means? I don't think they do.
It's something to do with isotopes, I'm guessing.
Oh, good.
How that relates to hydration, I don't know, but I suspect it's just marketing bullshit, isn't it?
Sounds a lot.
Do you think
like
we could be sued now by Lucozade?
Possibly, or they might just send a crate of it around.
Yeah,
I don't even drink it these days. It's like it's not really in my rotation.
It's too much. I mean, in fairness, the amount of sugar, glucose, which obviously is sugar, that went into the original one. I mean, that would pep you up, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, well, for a little while, yeah. It's I think it had more sugar than Coke. Even at some point, and probably they've replaced that with some other nasty chemical or nuclear waste or something right these days.
It would explain the colour.
Yeah,
but it does
the pep.
It does lead us into a sort of broader question.
That's right.
And now we have this north-south thing where I refuse to use the word pop.
Oh yeah, I don't say soda either.
Oh, no.
It's just a fizzy drink to me.
Yeah, fizzy drink. But I do appreciate that some of our listeners may refer to fizzy drinks as pop because I think that was certainly
because they're weird.
Yeah, sodas. That's an Americanism, isn't
it? Soda is. Yeah. Did you know that there's parts of America where they call any kind of fizzy drink a Coke, even if it isn't a Coke?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Those crazy Americans.
Strange. I know, very strange. So if you do that and you're American or not even, why on earth would you do that, right? So like, do people say like, do you want a Coke? Yes. And then, well, what do you want? Well, I've said a fucking Coke. No, something else. So yeah, it's weird. But soda, pop, fizzy drink, whatever you call it, there are lots of these that have disappeared over the years or just sort of faded into obscurity. And so I was thinking about this. Like, do you remember Tizer?
Tizer. You can tell it's Tizer when your eyes are shut.
There you go.
Yeah,
you can. I mean, it's sort of related somehow to Iron Brew, isn't it?
I think it's of that ilk of things that, and indeed Lucozade, flavours that are
Orange-coloured,
indescribable. It just had a very vivid colour and tasted of, I don't know.
Stuff.
Again, you just couldn't describe it.
I have no idea what Tizer was. Like, it's not a fruit, is it? It's some kind of.
I think it says fruit flavoured, but that's.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's bollocks,
isn't it? There's no fruit in there.
No.
But there were. I mean, there were others at the time. Quattro, which was very popular in the 80s, had a very cool TV ad. I mean, absolutely tasted like witch's piss, but that was a fruit flavoured beverage. But that
was a bit like Lilt, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe that they've now stopped Lilt. It's no longer a thing.
Yeah, that's right.
But at least with Lilt, you knew what you were supposed to be drinking. It was orange. Was it pineapple and grapefruit?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I didn't mind a Lilt. There was, what else was there at the back of the time? Fresca. Does that ring any bells?
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it was a bit. I think it was a lemonade limey thing. It was a bit like 7-Up.
Okay.
But it's of course, being a poor, impoverished council estate kid, I couldn't afford any of these various beverages. But we did used to have a delivery. Fizzy drinks just before Christmas. I think it used to come in a crate. What brand was it? Corona.
Obviously.
Now, does that still exist as a brand? Can you?
Well,
I'm guessing not.
I mean, even the beer. The Corona beer stopped having. People were freaking out because
I quite like a Corona. It's actually not a bad lager.
I do remember that soft drink Corona vaguely, yeah, and it came in glass bottles, of course, right?
Of course,
you probably had to, if you saved them and took them back, you got money, right?
You got 10p.
Wow.
So we used to scavenge the estate looking for these bottles in January.
Fucking right. Yeah.
I'm not going to say stealing them off doorsteps because that would. Don't know what the statute of limitations are for stealing empty bottles, but I'm not prepared to take any risks. But there was the flavours. I mean, it was we genuinely would only have fizzy drinks once a year at Christmas, and 12 bottles would turn up, and you'd have limeade, cherryade.
Cherryade.
Yeah, lemonade, Coke. Coke. Yeah, orangeade, obviously. Coke, which was cola. And arguably my favourite, cream soda.
Cream soda, that's actually on my list. Love cream soda.
Yeah.
I don't know why it isn't more popular. I
think I remember it being so sweet.
Yes.
It was, if you were very lucky, you might have a dollop of vanilla ice cream with it.
On top, yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
That was really pushing the boat.
Living the life.
But every now and again, and this just might be just a distant, I might have made this up or it might have been a dream. They would sneak in a bottle of Dandelion and Burdock, the bastards.
Oh, yes, Dandelion and Burdock. Do you not like that?
Oh, no. As a kid, it was just, it was such a disappointment.
Like that. Yeah,
it was
root beer is also another like that's the same kind of thing. But I did actually like those. Yeah, I might have to.
Tasted like
Dandelion.
I think you can. It just tasted like fizzy medicine. Yeah, something about it.
See, all of these elixirs, like they do have that sort of apothecary. You're dying in a hedge somewhere, and the apothecary has to come and pour this. Stuff on you or something, yeah.
But I guess
they're all a
lot of them are now coming back as some sort of hipstery,
artisanal.
That's it.
Yeah.
I heard a great description of artisan the other day.
Yeah.
And essentially, what it means is there are middle class people doing as a hobby what working class people do to pay the bills.
Right.
I thought that's
and being arseholes about it.
yeah. Handmade sourdough.
Oh, Christ.
I mean, how else are you going to make it? I suppose you make it in a machine in a factory.
Some kind of machine, but they probably still do, right? They just pretend it's So the other thing I've got on here, which I vividly remember, Vimto. Do you know that one?
Yeah, that is
Vimto.
still around.
Well, really?
Yeah.
But and that was not orange. That was sort of purple.
Wasn't it a Ribena? I couldn't think of the word there. Was it a bit Ribena-y?
Similar to Ribena-y, yeah. That's another one, actually. I haven't had Ribena for you. That's still around, though, isn't it? Still.
Yeah, we never had
available.
Ribena as kids because clearly it was, again, it was a cost thing. So we used to have these...
Much too posh.
Yeah, these supermarket squashes. That was and essentially all we had was orange or lemon. Neither tasted of orange or lemon. Just piss weak stuff. Yeah. But so we never had Ribena. I think I was 17 before I had my first. This sounds so Dickensian, doesn't it? 17 years of age before he had his first Ribena.
Wow.
But I had my first lager at 14, so it wasn't all bad.
So some people actually put Ribena or something, or blackcurrant into the Guinness, don't they? Something like that, isn't it? So,
really?
Guinness and black, something like that, yeah.
Ribena in Guinness?
Something like that. Maybe it's not Ribena, but blackcurrant of some kind.
Yeah. Your cider and black, that's a thing. Or snakebite, which I believe is lager cider with... I mean, it just sounds awful.
That's 16-year-old going around the pub and pouring the dregs of each pint.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine anyone going into a pub and actually asking for that.
You'd probably be slapped over the head, and rightly so.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
Right, so fizzy drinks. I mean, I think we could probably have a whole episode just talking about fizzy drinks. And we did say we wouldn't do this, didn't we? We say, "Oh, do you remember?" And here we are saying, "Do you remember?"
Sure, yeah. Well, but it's a nostalgia.
It is
podcast, so
exactly.
There you go. One other thing that I know that you do, right, and I have done it before, and probably people think we're weird for this, right? But back in those days when you didn't have fizzy drinks and you wanted a fizzy drink, what would you do? You go to the medicine cupboard and you'd find the Andrews liver salts, right? And you'd pour your glass of water, and you'd bang a spoon of Andrews into it, whiz it up. There you go.
Do you know,
fizzy as hell.
Weirdly, I am the only person in this house that will actually touch Andrews, and I still, every now and again, I will just have a glass of it, just for nostalgia.
Yeah.
I haven't got indigestion or anything. Just, that'd be nice.
It's good for you.
Bit salty,
Yeah.
Something about it.
It's got what has it got in it? Some kind of
Epsom salts.
Magnesium.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's probably good for you somehow. If it's not, then it's
who knows,
rotting away your guts. Who knows, right?
But it's one of those few things that you can actually get which tastes exactly the same as it used to.
Yes.
I mean, you can't get Quattro or Fresco or
no.
I mean, you get Tizer, but I did try Tizer a few years back, and it's like so much of the stuff that's still around that you remember from your youth. Just as a sidebar here, I spent forever, when I was young, I used to love Golden Wonder sausage and tomato crisps. And then they just disappeared. Sausage and tomato. It tasted nothing like sausage and tomato. No. But there was something about the flavour. And I spent forever trying to find them. And then I did find them in some random shop. And just cue disappointment. It just wasn't the same.
It's not the same, is it? Yeah.
Life is just one long series of disappointments.
Indeed. Was it because they don't make them like they used to, TM, or was it because you just your taste buds have evolved and they just did that? You can't believe that that you ever ate that crap. I
think it's probably they fucked around with the recipe. Yeah. I mean, they have to get rid of all the the fats that they used and salts and all the other stuff that actually...
All the good stuff,
the good stuff, which turned out to be not such good stuff, but it's what made it what it was. It was a massive disappointment, and I've lost my train of thought because we were talking about something very specific then, weren't we? Getting rid of the drinks, yes, Andrews, and all the other stuff that is long gone. So, the odd glass of Andrews, I think...
I think people should do that. It can't be bad. A bit of magnesium in your diet.
It would be weird if it was just you and me that did this.
If you do pep up your flat water with Andrews for a bit of a fizz, let us know. Well, obviously, we're not doctors, and you shouldn't take any medical advice from here. So, if you overdose on Andrews, then it's nothing to do with me.
6 months down the line, we find that Barry is got an unhealthy addiction to.
I mean, it can't be that bad, can it? It would just probably spend a lot of time in the toilet.
I was going to say, if you had too much of that, there you'd know about it. I mean, that's not an addiction that's going to build up without any
evidence.
No, consult your doctor, kids.
Indeed.
On that bombshell,
moving swiftly on.
Yes.
So I'm going to go with the original thing here.
Yeah.
So, whatever happened to and. What's the word?
You've completely lost in there. You are supposed to say, I hereby commit Lucozade.
That's it, right, sorry, yeah. So, I hereby commit Lucozade when you're sick to the retro lists.
Okay, so now we're done with Lucozade, and Barry is on the pathway to addiction. Let me start off with my first one. Tupperware parties. Something that has just faded from existence for no particular reason. Well, there is a reason. Like all of these things, once you actually do a bit of research, you realise why. But it's one of those things you thought, oh, do you remember when they were a thing?
Vaguely.
You don't remember them?
I mean,
you are aware of them.
Obviously, I am aware of them. I don't think I've ever attended one. Maybe my mum did, right?
I don't think we're the demographic, really.
No.
I mean, bear in mind,
No.
I can't imagine that. In fact, that would you would have been. So I think they were popular in the 70s. So you would have been very young,
very young, a kid.
And I think that.
Well, I mean, yeah.
The whole point of a Tupperware party, as best as I can tell, is it was an opportunity for housewives to get the fuck away from their husbands and their kids for a few hours.
I would imagine that's the primary goal. Yeah.
The Tupperware itself was just almost secondary.
Yeah.
But my mum used to attend these things fairly frequently. Probably once every fortnight, she would. They would have like a group of 8 of them, and they would all go around each other's houses.
Because you wouldn't need that much Tupperware.
No, obviously not. I mean, it was. We should probably say, because there might be people listening who don't know what Tupperware is.
Surely not, but okay, let's talk about what is Tupperware.
I think in very simple terms, it's just plastic containers with lids that are once fixed, virtually, I'm going to say, irremovable. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's a vacuum seal, or at least tight enough seal that air won't go in or out.
Yeah, so essentially it's like that stuff that your Chinese turns up in, with the plastic lids. American.
I was going to say, yeah.
And
it's American, yeah.
I did do some research, and I was very pleased to hear that it was invented by a chap called Earl Tupper, which I think is a magnificent name.
Of course he did.
Earl
Excellent.
Tupper. But just as another sidebar, my daughter, who's 21 now, for the first 19 years of her life, she thought it was Tupperware.
Oh dear!
And when she revealed this, I thought, do you know what? That kind of makes sense, because she said
it's a tub.
They make tubs.
It does make sense, but yes, the chap was called Tupper.
Tupper. Earl Tupper.
Mr. Tupper. I suppose there's a massive Earl Tupper estate somewhere in Ohio or somewhere weird, right? And
gotta be.
Yeah. Probably go and do the museum. We should do that one day,
The Tupperware museum.
Yeah,
what a fine day out.
Full of
Tupperware.
Yeah, Tupperware and middle-aged women, talking about the Tupperware, obviously.
So you can still buy Tupperware, but you can no longer attend a Tupperware party.
Right, and so what happened at these parties? Like, I mean, was there alcohol? Was there chips and?
I'm guessing there was. I know that my mum used to do a little spread, as she called it,
right.
And that would involve frozen vol au vents.
Nice.
A thing with
fancy.
Yeah, fancy. Cheese and pineapple on sticks, chunks of cheese and pineapple on sticks. Occasionally a little onions, pickled onions with a bit of cheese, all stuck into this thing, so it looked like I've forgotten what's it called? Hedgehog.
Edge.
This is the trouble. When we do these things before midday, brains don't work. Even simple words, just can't think. So they would do this, but we were all sort of told, we were under strict instructions: do not enter the room.
Right.
You stay out, so they could, and you,
pain of death.
Yeah, and you would hear them cackling, and I think I'm fairly sure alcohol was involved.
It's not the other kind of women party, is it? It's not.
I know where you're going with this. Yeah, you're going
not the Ann Summers.
I think they were slightly later, but they certainly. That's how I think the Ann Summers brand sort of kicked off doing this sort of party type thing. I mean, it's a very different market. You can imagine if you're sat around with one group of friends, discussing plastic tubs with lids, and they also did jugs. I remember
Jugs, right?
I'm still talking about Tupperware here. So they did jugs and they did plastic cups and a whole manner of different stuff. So, but as you say, you do wonder how much of it was actually about the product. But at some point, that same group of women, one of them has said, "Oh, next week we're going to try something different, and we're going to bring along vibrators and crotchless knickers." I mean, that's a shift, isn't it?
It's a big change, but I suppose it's part of the revolution. It's the freedom and all of that. Fair enough.
I would imagine this possibly had something to do with the demise of Tupperware, because it's probably a bit more fun to talk about that sort of stuff than
I imagine,
plastic tubs. But
so did they? So the aim was to actually sell product, though, wasn't it? Ultimately, because then you presumably got some sort of money out of it.
Yeah, essentially you were a salesperson. So whoever organised the party would get. I think they had a host who was the person who had who obviously hosted the party. But then there was like a rep for Tupperware who would come along, and they would just I'm guessing a lot of this, or this is based on my research, but they would talk about the products, and people would be, encouraged to buy whatever new line.
I suppose if you bothered to actually go to the party and eat the cheese and pineapple sticks, then
obligation,
you probably obligate, to you've got to buy at least a couple of pots.
And no one was getting rich off this apart from Earl Tupper.
Indeed, it sounds like a scam, doesn't it? A pyramid scheme, or what do you call it, the MLM, multi-level marketing. Sounds very dodgy, and it's the other stuff that they sell like that. It's Avon, isn't it? It's
Avon
makeup, and
I think that it was the social element clearly that was the draw, because it sounds slightly sexist to say it now, but this was housewives. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. It was aimed clearly and firmly, and you would never get a husband. I mean, they were forbidden going anywhere near. But it was a social thing. I'm pretty sure it was an excuse to have a party, make a few quid. And
fair enough.
As I say, get away from the husband and kids for a few hours. Now they have Candy Crush and Gala Bingo.
That's right. Excellent. Well, fair enough.
So Tupperware parties, and then I think actually 2003 Tupperware withdrew from the home party market. Basically, they just cancelled all their licenses. So you can still buy Tupperware, I'm sure. Tupperware, if you're listening and you'd like to send us some of your lovely plastic tubs.
I could do with some, actually. Yeah, I do just use Chinese takeaway pots.
Do you know what? I think we could set up a rival brand and call it Tupperware, and then have parties. But probably, this time,
I wonder if
we just have men in a shed discussing plastic containers.
That's.
Actually, that sounds really seedy now I've said that. Maybe we're not. Tupperware. What are you doing? I'm just going to the shed with a plastic tub. Martin and John are going to be there.
Dodgy. Yeah, we wouldn't get away with it, would we?
Rightly so.
Back in the day.
Yeah,
what the fuck are you doing in the shed?
Well, we would go to the pub. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, although we weren't conscious of it, the Tupperware party actually did meet its demise in 2003. But I think it sort of disappeared long before then. I don't seem to remember ever hearing reference to a Tupperware party in the 90s. So I think it's safe to say that it's one of those things that just sort of faded from consciousness throughout the 80s and into the 90s. So
I'm curious though, like, does anyone maybe still sort of hold them as a sort of nostalgia thing? Like, you just bring out your old Tupperware as you still
like a collector's thing.
Yeah,
It probably is.
If you still have Tupperware parties, please do let us know and invite us.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, we won't come, but you definitely invite us. Like all parties and social events and functions, please invite us, but we won't turn up. Right, so on that, I am going to, now we've offended everyone again, I hereby commit Tupperware parties to the retro list. Your second choice, sir.
My second choice, right? So while you were off school, drinking Lucozade on the couch, right, watching blockbusters on the telly, but that TV wasn't probably owned by your family, right, your parents. So whatever happened to renting home appliances?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I was digging around in it. I'm sure that we did this. I can't remember the brands, right, but there was things like Ferguson, Thorn EMI,
Grundig,
all of those wonderful Grundig, yeah, all those great brands of TV and things. So TVs were a luxury, expensive, right? And probably most homes couldn't afford to go and splash, whatever it was, hundreds of pounds, equivalent of thousands, maybe even, to bring this lump of furniture into the house. And of course, everyone wanted it, right? So there was a whole business, many businesses probably, but especially radio rentals. Remember them?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it now, that radio rentals existed purely to service this market, and they had shops on every high street across the land. So it must have been huge. So I think you're onto something.
Yeah. So I mean, you wouldn't own the TV that was in your living room, and I suppose, because it's radio, right? Presumably they started with radios as well. Can you imagine that a radio must cost like a few pennies these days for the chips and the electronics, but back in the day it was a huge lump of furniture.
With valves and all sorts of stuff.
So it was not cheap to bring in, and so you paid for it weekly, probably not monthly, probably weekly. And I think probably it's before the days of like direct debit and things like that. So I think somebody probably came to your house every so often.
Well, shall I tell this? Let me tell you how we paid for ours. Okay, and I'm sure that this was again a thing that my kids do not believe. So we had a box fixed to the back of our TV, and you had to put a 50p piece in it, a bit like an electric meter, and then
into the telly.
Yeah, seriously. And then every, I think it was probably 6 hours, 10 hours. I don't know. I never calculated, but it would just cut. The TV would cut out. You'd be in the middle of Corrie or whatever, and it would just cut out. And then everyone would be scrabbling around for a 50p piece to put into the TV. This was a genuine thing, and my kids, they really don't believe me. I say that this, and that was how we. And what used to happen is a guy from Radio Rentals or wherever it was would come around once a month, empty the box, and if there was more money than the cost of the rental, which was, I don't know, 15 quid a month or whatever it was, then they would give you that money back. So like a little rebate.
No way.
Yeah. So we used to get these little bonuses once a month. Because obviously we used the TV a lot. There's nothing else to do.
Incredible.
Yes. So
can you imagine though, having a big cache of coins on the side of your telly? I mean, presumably some people would hack the telly. And break open that coin.
I guess the thing is with that though, if you're essentially just robbing from yourself, aren't you? Because if the guy turns up and there's like 8 quid in there,
does he take the TV away then?
Not on his own, I wouldn't have thought. That's a two-man job
around the estate, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, these things were bastard heavy, weren't they?
Yeah, huge. I mean, so you think of a TV now, they are flat, but they are, I don't know, 6 feet wide. Like most people have these massive tellies on the wall, and then
I have an 85-incher.
do you
I
know?
do.
Wow, good grief! That's a considerable size of television, right? But if you imagine, that's probably 2 inches thick maximum, if that, right? But the TVs of yore, right, it was maybe 30 inches or something. But the box that it came in was a side table.
It's like a crate.
A massive wooden thing on legs, probably had a sort of shelf underneath it for something, and wow.
But you don't. Do people still rent TVs?
I can't imagine that anybody. Like, I think radio rentals closed in 2000.
Okay, so that suggests that the market would sort of dried up a bit. Cheap electronics,
Cheap electronics, yeah. I mean, Dixons and Currys took all their business, I suppose. I mean, because, so, I mean, I suppose...
A higher purchase, I think that was another thing as well, wasn't it? It was this sort of explosion in the 90s of being able to buy everything on credit. I mean, it was always something, but it just became so much more prevalent that you could just go into Dixons or Currys or Comet, and it would show a price, and it would say £4 a week or whatever it would be.
Right. Right.
So I guess that killed off why rent something when you can buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose actually though, I think the renting model allowed you to sort of upgrade it every so often.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because like if you buy it, you buy a telly, it's going to last you 10, 15 years. But back in those days, right? Obviously these days TVs break every 5 minutes, right? And fridges and everything. I think they did. By the way, radio rentals also did some white goods, right? So yeah, maybe your fridge and your washing machine were also rented.
Yeah.
Like, so everything in your house.
Chest freezers. Are they still a thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Well, for serial killers, I'd imagine they're quite useful.
Right.
But I can't...
A couple of bodies in the garage.
I'm struggling to think of the... I mean, back in the day, you would go to B-Jam and buy all your crap, and then that would end up in the chest freezer, which lived in the shed or
garage or something.
And it would just, you'd be sent out to pick out a packet of frozen pizzas or
peas,
crispy pancakes or whatever it was. But yeah, chest freezers. Sorry, we're going off script again here, aren't we?
So you wouldn't. I mean, I actually think you would even. Speaking of renting things, the telephone in your house, right? The one with the dialy thing and the lock on it, right?
Yeah.
You probably didn't own that either. And I'm not sure you even could own those, like, because they were owned by BT.
They were.
And you rented it, right, as part of your, I suppose,
£3 a month
rental.
Probably, or something. It was part of your bill that you had to pay for this.
Yeah. Stupid phone, yeah.
Yeah, when you could go out and buy one for, whatever it...
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation. Phones.
Yes. The world has changed, right? And so, we don't rent equipment anymore, really. I mean, suppose you might lease your car, or you might have a hire purchase on, I don't know, computer or something. But you probably don't rent your telly. And probably you can't rent your telly anymore. And if you do, let me know. VCRs as well, all right? Obviously,
of course, because they were obviously a major expense. You're talking sort of 400 quid.
Yeah, and the equivalent these days probably a couple of grand or something.
Comfortably. So that would have made a lot of sense. So you'd have thought, actually, when the VCR came out, radio rentals must have been having it off.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know what they probably made a ton of money over the years, but and then faded into obscurity. But the Mr. Radio rental or whatever, he's probably still living that dream. Actually, it was Percy Perring Toms.
Really? We're coming up with some cracking names. I'm going to use some of these. Percy Perring Toms.
That's it. Percy Perring Toms, formed in 1930 in Brighton. There you go.
Perring Toms.
Radio
There
rentals.
probably are still some Perring Toms kicking
Oh,
around.
definitely.
I mean, that was
The
back in the
Perring
day
Toms
when
estate.
having a double-barrelled name actually had some meaning.
you
Everyone
go.
now seems to have a double-barrelled name.
Yes, I don't. But
So yes, I'm sure the Perring Tom
Perring Toms
dynasty their estate is still doing very well.
hunting and riding and shooting all in Brighton somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice, very nice.
With a 22-inch Grundig TV in the corner of the sitting room.
We should go to the Radio Rentals Museum as well.
Yeah.
Lovely. And obviously, Cockney rhyming slang, radio rental. He's a bit radio rental,
Yeah.
isn't he? You know what that means, right? So, yeah, it has a place in history. But sadly, you don't do that anymore.
Fallen
so,
from public consciousness. Nobody has ever wandered down the high street and go, wonder what happened to Radio Rentals.
Yeah. I suppose it's probably a phone shop now.
Or an Ann Summers shop.
Right. Yeah.
Plenty of them around.
Did people still? Would you actually go into a shop and buy Ann Summers equipment?
Well, I
suppose you
wouldn't
would.
personally, but I would imagine that it. Yeah, I've never really thought about it because essentially it's. I mean, I know they sell lingerie and stuff, but essentially it's a sex shop, really. Which I guess the whole point of Ann Summers was to sort of take away the whole seediness,
Yes.
and it's aimed very much at women rather than men in Max.
Yeah. Excellent.
Anyway, we should move on from
Anyway, so I hereby commit renting home appliances to the retro list.
Right, I feel I should apologise in advance of my next choice.
Oh dear.
Any female listeners, I mean, you might want to tune
of
out
you.
now. I mean, both of you. But I feel that I couldn't avoid this. And in fact, I'm quite staggered that we managed to not talk about it for 2.5 episodes. But if we're talking about something that just fell away, just fell out of public consciousness, that was very much part and parcel of our lives growing up, we could not have this conversation, or we couldn't have a list without including hedge porn.
Hedge porn. Yes.
Hedge porn. So I
Yes.
should probably explain what it is.
What is hedge porn?
And I don't know if it. I don't.
Photos of hedges.
I had thought that till now. I don't know if this is. I wasn't even sure that it was a national thing, but it is, because I've heard stories. I mean, you grew up in Hertfordshire, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I grew up on the
Oh,
Surrey-Hants borders, and we both, but for the sake of,
encountered hedge porn.
we should clarify what it is. So back in the 70s and 80s, as a young lad, you would be wandering along, and you would every now and
Minding your own
again
business.
minding your own business, as you did, whistling, having a sip of your Lucasade, and you would spot a magazine buried in a hedgerow, and it was a soft porn magazine, typically something like Razzle or Escort, Readers' Wives, this type of stuff. No one knows how they got there, but they were.
I mean, I was wondering how did they get there? Why are they there?
Well, I've theorised long and hard,
Right.
and and I suspect it was like an early form of recycling. I mean, you wouldn't, if you had a magazine at home, let's say you had a copy of Escort and you were 14, and you'd had enough. Debbie from Doncaster had lost her sparkle.
Right, which can happen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So you think, well, I can't put it in the bin because my parents are going to find it. So essentially, you would ceremonially take it to the park and lob it in the nearest hedgerow.
I see.
So for some
future
other
generation.
horny little womble.
Excellent. And but I mean, I suppose if you're 14 and doing that, well, where did you get it from in the first place? You might have even discovered it in a hedge
Yourself.
So it is a long process of recycling. Some old bloke, obviously in the aforementioned Macintosh, that's, long jacket kind of thing, coat. He bought it in the first place.
Yes.
Used up all of its
It's
luster.
it no longer held the same appeal or attraction.
And rather than, obviously, you couldn't have a stash of these in your house because, your mum or your wife would find it and game over then, right? So, so you had to dispose of it. You're not going to throw it in the bin because it's waste, right? So, yeah.
So this was a genuine thing. And now I know that it's rather coarse to talk about pornography, but we are talking about much simpler times here.
Yes. It wasn't what it wasn't the same standard of hardcore porn that you get these days, right? It was
far from it.
very,
It was
very
simpler.
subtle.
It was, I would almost say, there was an innocence to it. The young ladies in these magazines, they were typically the girl next door. Sometimes the actual girl next door. Your mate's older sister, Claire.
Wow.
But the models, they looked like. I mean, I'm not talking about the glossy magazines like the Playboys and what was the other one? Right. The American ones, Penthouse. They were very glossy. No one was throwing them out. We're talking about the British.
White clean.
Well, they had stuff in them, weren't they? They had like articles and features, and Playboy in particular was apparently
classic cars.
It was one of those things that they said you could read it on, in public without anyone sort of casting an eye because
on the
it
train
had
or something.
It wasn't seen as smut. Whereas over here we had things like Razzle and Escort, and I can't think of many. Fiesta. Why are they named after cars?
Car names.
Yeah. And actually, they featured a lot of cars of the era. You would also, you would see one of these young ladies sprawled across the bonnet of a Mark II Escort, looking very disinterested, slightly cold, uncomfortable. But that's, I think, was part of the charm. And there was no Photoshop back then, was there? So they were an actual reflection of very typical average British women. So you weren't getting this sort of overly sexualized reflection of women that kids today get. I can't believe we're doing a full critique of pornography now.
Kids today. Well, I mean, and you obviously would have the 70s. What's the word? The muff.
The bush.
The bush, but 70s bush,
The bush, ironically.
So,
but
in the hedge.
It does seem, and again, drop us a line if you ever. I don't know how long you would keep said publication for, or what condition you would deem.
Find it in.
Because sometimes, obviously, it'd be out to the elements, and you would sort of, the pages would be. Oh, okay, I'm going to say this. The pages would be stuck together.
By what method of adhesive?
I would generally say because they'd been out in the rain for 4 or 5 days. I'd like to think that was all it ever was.
That's why. There's nothing else
but
in there.
If you could peel open the pages, and it still had its structural integrity.
Yes.
That was enough to take it home and to sort of dry it out.
Yeah, I suppose you would have to, wipe it clean of aphids, but then get down to business.
Purely for research purposes, obviously. We do not condone or endorse anything beyond
any kind of
sexual chicanery. But it just stopped happening. I mean, obviously, I guess at some point the VHS video came along, and suddenly people weren't interested in magazines. I think also they moved them in the supermarket. You used to be able to go to the supermarket in your newsagents, so these things would be on full display. You go in there, and your mum would ask for a copy of People's Friend or Women's Weekly or whatever. And the grot mags, as we used to affectionately
the hedgerow grumble, the jazz mags,
they would be on a shelf just above. I mean, they were
top shelf. Yeah.
Well, they weren't even on the top. I don't even remember them being necessarily on the top shelf. I think that was a later thing that they would be put up there. I think it was probably
Right.
Mary Whitehouse inspired who would insist that they were, and then eventually they were put. They were covered up, so they were in plain
That's
packaging,
right,
a bit
yeah.
like cigarettes. Now I don't know if you can still go into a branch of WH Smith's and pick up a, should we say,
like
an
that.
adult magazine?
Men's Interest.
Men's Interest,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I certainly haven't done that.
Do email us in,
we-
listeners.
Yeah. Because why would you, right? I mean, I suppose it's...
Well, nostalgia, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's the
Nostalgia, but-
practicality, of course. If during a power cut,
Right, yes.
If,
You still need equipment.
we should touch on very quickly if we're going to go through the timeline. Prior to being, there was a moment, and I'm speaking in very general terms, that prior to you actually acquiring your first piece of hedge porn, your only inspiration was a catalogue.
Oh, yes.
So you would.
Home shopping catalogue.
Yeah, so you would normally Kay's or Freeman's, and it would be the lingerie section.
Lingerie, obviously.
Yeah,
or
which was
swimwear.
a given. But then, if you got a bit more creative and you were willing to sort of, search on, there would be a section for shower enclosures, shower related products.
Now you're getting into the nitty gritty here.
Yeah,
aren't
and that
you? Showers.
that would involve a naked lady, at a really strange angle that nobody has ever showered at. So you could see a buttock and maybe the
if you're
slightest
lucky.
glimpse of side boob, but nothing
Slight.
more. And she'd be looking back over her shoulder, smiling.
Yeah.
But that was it. I mean, that was all you had.
Yeah, couldn't get a whole tit and back in those days.
No, not a chance. Certainly not in the Argos catalogue. It was the Book of Dreams, quite literally, for a period of
Yes.
time. And then you would of course come across hedge porn one day, and that would change everything.
literally, yeah.
It was a seminal moment for many teenage lads.
There you go.
They that was the
Hedge
wrong use
porn.
of they realised what they'd been missing out on.
Yeah,
but
whole
of course,
world of
yeah,
opportunities. Yes.
and unattainable women.
Yeah.
But of course, I suppose like magazines in general, they just sort of fallen by the wayside.
There you go.
So I think we were probably the last generation that actually got to experience finding soft pornography magazines in hedgerows and bushes.
Around England's wonderful shores. Yes.
I kind of think it should have been something about it in Jerusalem.
Well, I wonder if this is the thing in other countries, right? What would you find in the hedge? You probably don't want to know. What would you find in the hedges of America, right? Like ears and
Gabe, if you're listening,
Yeah.
please let us know if hedge porn
us know.
was a thing in the US.
yes,
I suppose it depends very much in which part of the US you lived in.
yeah, it's a big country, isn't it? Yeah,
But maybe they would have just dumpster porn.
right.
Maybe I don't know, or maybe you would just go around because they had mailboxes at the end of the driveway. So I guess if somebody
right.
was, if you were aware
Getting
that
that delivered.
if Mr. Smith at number 2,944,
Yeah, because they go up that.
weirdly huge numbers, used to have a copy of, I don't know, whatever it would, Reader's Wives delivered.
Playboy, probably.
You might be tempted as a teenage miscreant to go and steal it. Just saying.
Quite possibly.
Whereas you can't do that here because they get shoved through a letterbox. Unless the postman happened to leave it slightly poking out and a 14-year-old happened to wander past one day and...
That would be the jackpot, wouldn't it? That'd be winning the lottery.
Yeah,
right?
having
a
a-
brand new magazine, maybe even in a plastic wrapper, never been exposed to the elements or anything else.
contrary to popular belief, teenage boys never bought soft porn.
didn't have any money.
A, you never had any money. B, the only place you could buy it would be the newsagents that you'd been going to for years that knew your parents.
To buy sweets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just could not face these people that you knew that were almost like family. You knew, there's no way you're going in there and you're just going, even just buy a pack of fags was tricky enough. So there was no way you're buying that. So the only way you could really get your hand on it was... we should wrap this bit up.
Get a hand on it. Lovely. Did you know that for a while, recently, in the last, 5-10 years or something, Playboy actually stopped having nudity in it? I think they came back to that, but there was some kind of plan that, like, they didn't think it was worthwhile anymore because, porn
Internet.
is just everywhere. Yeah, internet porn, right? But I guess they probably lost a lot of readers at that point. And I mean, there's probably still people who do subscribe to it and do maybe even read the articles, believe it or not. Like
I guess if you think about it, like a lot of media, and the way we consume media that's changed over the decades. I mean, there's still people who love listening to vinyl records.
True.
Some people like listening to cassettes. Some people like reading actual books rather than a Kindle. It's just the experience, isn't it? So, there's that sort of... it's what you're used to.
Getting your Playboy in the post, or going down to the shop and getting it, and then taking it back to your shed. And
I mean, I've got to be honest, I've never ever been tempted to read. Okay, we should probably drop this bit. I was going to mention the Argos catalogue, but you can't even get the Argos catalogue anymore, can you?
No.
So that's another childhood memory gone, sullied, tarnished.
So many of
which is probably a good time to say on that note, I hereby commit hedge porn to the retro list. So your final entry.
My final pick, right? So, and this is, if somebody didn't know this, like if some young people listening to this, you probably might find this utterly bizarre, but to aid the stalkers of the world, the British Telecom, I suppose, or whoever made these things, would deliver a massive book. Speaking of books that don't come to your house anymore, right, or that you don't have, a huge, thick book with thousands of very thin pages in it, with everybody in the town and area, phone number, name and address. Can you imagine, like, by in alphabetical order? So yeah, can you imagine? You want to know somebody's name and address, or somebody's phone number? Well, you just go and look it up in the book that's in your house, delivered to your house every so often. Probably, I don't know, once a 6 months or something. But yeah,
isn't it weird how now you've mentioned that it's given me cause to sort of think. People shit the bed now over their privacy, online privacy. Sometimes, okay, you can argue that with good reason, but most of the time, bloody cookies and stuff. No one cares. GDPR, no one cares. But to actually have your name, address, and full name, address, and phone number in a book, and then given to every...
in a book.
And in fact, if you went to the library, they had directories for every town, didn't they?
Right, yeah. So a complete listing of everybody around you. You could opt, I think, to be ex-directory. But, if you...
That involved a lot of faff, though. It's not like now where you just go online. I think you probably had to go to a post office and fill out a form and send a letter or...
ring up or something. Yeah, it wasn't the default, right? No. The default was you got a phone, you're in that book. And I suppose, like, if you were in it once and then you decided later that I'm going to go ex-directory, was too bad because somebody could still have that book.
And I think if you... The whole thing, if you think about that, this is a different mindset, isn't it? Because back in the day, you thought, actually, it's really useful to actually have a book containing everyone's numbers. Because if you want to ring somebody who you don't know that well, you just pick up the phone book.
Yeah, and these are the days of landlines. Not phone was in your house, not in your pocket, right? And so it was the house that you were calling effectively. I suppose this is why it's sort of gone out of fashion, is because who, aside from people who still have the phone number that they had 30 years ago, if you were, I don't know, moving house or something, you probably wouldn't even bother setting up a landline these days, right? And I mean, you have the broadband, and that might come with a phone number, but would you even bother plugging a phone in? Probably not.
Well, people like Virgin Media, who I use, they insist you have a phone as part of the. So you have the broadband, you have the TV, and they go, "Oh, do you want a phone?" No, I don't want a phone, but it's cheaper. I don't want a phone. I mean. So we ended up with this phone line, and no one knew. The only people that ever call this thing are people pretending to be from Microsoft or Virgin, trying to scam me.
Yes.
That's it. You get one of these calls every 3-4 months. You think, well, why is this thing sat in there? And it's got an answer phone on it. Why, I don't know. Do you think this thing's sat in the corner of the room, powered up?
Eating electricity for no reason.
As soon as I finish this, I'm going to go and unplug it. I just want to know. I
suppose. I mean, it's probably like last resort emergency. All your phone, all your mobiles are powered down.
I've got a suspicion it's probably now they switched to VoIP. So it's probably not even a proper phone line. It's probably, if the broadband goes down, you scupper it anyway.
Yeah. Wow. So, but yeah. So, if it was the 80s now, I could just pick up a book and say, "Oh, what's Keith's number?" And probably find it in a big book with your name and address.
Yeah.
And just.
We could probably find out where Barry lives. Just check up on him.
Yeah. See if he's all right.
Yeah.
But it's utterly bizarre when you think about it. But yet it was totally normal back then. It was just, you wouldn't even have thought about, well, maybe you did, right? But maybe you wouldn't have thought about using it as a stalking device or some kind of nefarious use. It was just, there's the phone book. And of course, with that was what they call the Yellow Pages.
Yes.
Which was same kind of shape and size, but the pages were yellow. And this was a directory of businesses in your area. And that would be a bit more elaborate. That wasn't just a list of a tightly packed small font name and number, but this would have like little boxes of adverts, and you'd pay to be in that list. I think if you didn't pay,
you got a listing.
Just the one line, right? But if you wanted to stand out, obviously your taxi company was called AAAA.
Well, here's the thing with that, isn't it? Because there's probably loads of kids walking around going, "Why are all taxi companies called AA, AAA, quadruple A?" And of course, it was purely because they were listed alphabetically.
Alphabetical order, yeah. And so, you want a taxi, you go to the taxi section, first one in that list.
Cabs.
Yeah, taxis.
I mean, you would never set up a cab firm and call it, I don't know, Zulu Cabs, would you?
Well,
I mean, not in this day and age, for sure.
No, well, yeah, or some, in the middle, like M Cabs or something. That's just, nobody's going to get that far. You pick the first one, and you ring, and that's that. And
but you then find, I suppose, if you, I'm sure somebody has probably done the research, but I guess if you went back to companies that are established between, I don't know, the 60s and 80s, 90s, I would bet there are more companies beginning with the letter A than any other letter of the alphabet by some margin.
That's an interesting project for somebody's thesis, yeah.
And I will tell you this, people may or not know, I used to do web design and marketing before I was an author. And
AAA.
No word of a lie, I was talking to a client, and bless those, I mean, she was let's just say of slightly more advanced years, and she had a pet sitting business, and she genuinely thought that the results on Google were listed alphabetically.
No.
And I thought about it at the time. I guess it would be very easy to mock, but I guess that's just why would you think any
mindset,
differently?
yeah.
Because that's how the phone book works. That's how the Yellow Pages works. Why would Google be any different?
That's classic. I never even thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is not. It is not alphabetical. It's more like, search hierarchy and what's the word, SEO stuff. But
Yeah.
Excellent.
And Google's sexy algorithm.
There you go.
So, but I don't. Are they still? Definitely the Yellow Pages. I know that's toast. But I'm trying to remember if the phone directory. When I last saw a phone directory.
I haven't had one delivered for probably 15 years, I don't think.
Here's the thing, though, isn't it? It really fits the brief because it's one of those things that you just don't think about. They just stopped arriving. I mean, it wasn't like
They started to get thinner.
Yeah, that
Thinner
was
and thinner.
noticeable. But at some point, this thing just stopped turning up.
Stopped happening.
It's not as though
And
you were
can
sat at
see,
the doorstep, was it? Go, oh God, this year's edition's due out any time. I can start stalk. I can some new people to stalk.
Yeah. But there is somebody somewhere, right, in the world who has a massive shelf or shelves full of every phone book, in mint condition, and probably like they take pictures of them and go to meetings and.
That would need to be a reinforced shelf because those things weighed a ton.
Yeah, massive. And there was a thing. For a while, like it'd be on Blue Peter or something. Somebody rips them in half.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that bloke's
Jeff
name?
Capes.
There you go.
But I think he was the world's strongest
Big
man
Daddy.
at some point. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that was
They would
the
rip
mark
them in
of strength,
half.
wasn't it? To rip up and a reference that wouldn't work nowadays. If you said to
No.
anyone under
Very
30, if you think you're hard, rip up a Yellow Pages. They go, what are you talking about?
It's only 3 pages thick.
Yeah.
Ripping phone books in half. Brilliant. And of course, we couldn't have a discussion about Yellow Pages without talking about Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. Do you remember him?
Arguably one of the best TV adverts ever made.
Yeah. So you probably, if anyone doesn't know who J.R. Hartley is, he's an old chap, and the advert is for Yellow Pages, I guess, about how wonderful it is. And so this chap, he's an old boy, and he's been going around every bookshop in town looking for a copy of Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. And he gets home, and his daughter's like, "Oh, did you not find it?" And he's like, No. And so she gives him a copy of the Yellow Pages and says, "Why don't you have a look in there and see?" And then we cut to this old boy. He's ringing instead of wandering around the town. He's an old boy. He's got a walking stick and he's tired because he's not going to do that. He's ringing the bookshop directly, and he's like, "Do you have a copy of Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley?" And you do? Oh, wonderful. Will you hold it for me? And my name, it's J.R. Hartley.
That's perfect.
And we're all feeling poor old J.R. Hartley. He's found his book.
Yeah.
He published his book, A Million Fly Fishing. For some reason, he's lost every copy the publisher ever gave him. And now
Could have been a
wants to pick
tragic
up a
fire.
copy.
We don't know.
Yeah, must be.
No,
right?
it was never explained, his backstory. But I would say
So consequently, I think this became so popular that there is now a book called Fly
There is.
Fishing
I've seen
by
it.
J.R. Hartley.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I can't say I've read it. I can't say fly fishing actually as a concept appeals
Not
to me
really.
greatly. But if you think about that advert, I mean, I've got to say most adverts these days are shit. But
Yeah,
that had a proper story arc. I mean, it really was.
Emotion.
Happy
you know,
ending.
Yeah. Poor
Relatable,
J.R. Hartley.
relatable
He
characters.
finally got a copy of his book,
But it was a huge advert, and that was just actually. But you think about it, who was he ringing that he hadn't already visited?
yes, exactly right. Like,
There was a flaw. There was a plot hole.
we authors have to look these things up and
But it was
find the holes.
it was charming. I mean, even just hearing your
A rendition.
your rendition of it.
I don't know if we're allowed to. Is that copyright? I could put in a bit of.
I should think we're probably all right with that. I mean, the Yellow Pages doesn't exist anymore, isn't it? And J.R. Hartley is long dead.
Long dead, yeah. So I will paste in a little bit.
His daughter now. Oh, have you got a funeral for...
Oh, Jesus. Right. So we'll have a little bit of nostalgia amongst the nostalgia, right? So if you don't know J.R. Hartley, I don't know if his book's any good. But maybe it's wonderful. Fly Fishing
by J.R. Hartley.
I don't suppose you have a copy of Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. It is rather old.
Good old Yellow Pages. We don't just help with the nasty things in life, like a blocked drain. We're there for the nice things, too.
You do? Oh, that's wonderful. Can you keep it for me? My name, oh yes, it's J.R. Hartley.
Yeah, can't imagine. What's that? Is that putting little bits of flies or maggots or something onto your
No,
plate,
essentially it's a hook, some barbed hook that has a little feather or something other, and they flip. I've never understood fishing, and I get some element of it. I understand sitting on a riverbank on a nice day, peace and quiet.
There you go.
Get that bit. The actual dragging a fish from a pond or a river, and then putting it back afterwards. Never really understood that.
No. Yeah. Putting it back, like, it's after you've injured it. You know? It's a bit mean, really.
I've got a feeling that may be controversial, the most controversial thing that we've said on this podcast so far, and well, they're going to lose subscribers, or people are going to send angry emails to chat at retro. Actually, if you're sending angry emails, send them to adam@retrolists.com.
I'm not checking that, so
it doesn't exist. We'll cut that bit out, all right?
Okay, brilliant. Cool. So, look, what are we talking about?
We were talking about phone books, and as usual, we've gone off-piste.
Well, I'm just going to shut it down then. And phone books, oh, Christ. I hereby commit phone books and Yellow Pages to the retro list.
So my final entry into this episode's retro list is formal dining. And by that, what I mean is the dining room as a space in the house that the family would eat, obviously. And it's quite a posh term, isn't it, a dining room? But we had a dining room in our council house.
Nice.
Did you have a dining room?
I think we did. Yes.
Did you dine in it formally?
I mean, that is something that is a bit of a loss, actually, isn't it? So I think that we probably did sit around the table, maybe not 3 times, but twice a day. When we were kids, because it wasn't. At the moment, I don't have a dining room. And there is a table in the kitchen, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's where we, sit and eat, but mostly we don't. But yeah, you would, a separate room, and sometimes there'd be like a little hatch in the wall.
Yes.
From the kitchen to
we
the
had one.
Really?
Absolutely. A serving hatch.
Brilliant. And yeah, Mum would put the plates and everything in there.
That's a bit sexist, isn't it?
Whoever was cooking would put that. I'm a chef, right? Or was a chef, so I.
Are you allowed that one?
Yeah,
okay,
I'm allowed.
But the serving hatch, I'd forgotten all about. We had a serving hatch. What a random little thing.
Yeah, and so it's like a window, but obviously no glass. And maybe there was a little shutter that you could cover up. So
ours we had little doors, little hinge doors.
Right.
So. You could shut. Now, I never knew whose benefit they were for. Was it for the people dining? Who go, oh, Miriam's banging on again. Just shut the door.
Yeah. How uncouth
they haven't got to listen to her whining.
To listen to the kitchen sounds whilst you're having your fancy dinner, right? I mean, yeah. So So your dining table, your dining chairs. Would you have like a tablecloth and
Absolutely.
yeah?
You would have the.
Sunday
We were
dinner.
only ever Sunday roast was the highlight of the week. But you would sit there and you'd have not 3 courses, but certainly 2. You would sit there and have your Sunday lunch, and then you would have your pudding. But it was a thing. We were not allowed to eat anywhere but the dining room.
Wow, really?
So there was none of this sort of sat in front of the TV with a tray or anything like that. The only place you were allowed to eat was the dining room.
That's what it's for. If you've got one, right, you might as well use it.
Yeah, but thinking the whole culture of that sort of dining as
Yes.
people did it. I mean, it does sound very middle class, and
Yeah.
it really wasn't a middle class thing. But the middle class had a different approach because they had things like hostess trolleys. And
instead of the serving hatch, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So they
Wheel it in
were
on the trolley.
wheeling this thing in. I don't know how often those things were used in middle class households.
That's what
I mean.
you'd find that hostess trolley in the Argos catalogue, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or the Freeman's catalogue, and it's fancy.
It does seem a massive ball ache to load all your food into this thing, wheel it through to the dining room, and then serve up. Whereas in working class, what would happen is the stuff would be shoved on a plate and passed through the hatch.
Yeah.
And that was how it worked.
I suppose you'd have, if you're fancy, right, or if you're having a dinner party, for a very dinner, it's like those, Ferrero Rocher. Oh,
Ferrero Rocher.
With these Rocher, you are spoiling us. That kind of fancy dinner party that obviously everybody, remembers and had. Then you'd be dishing up bowls of whatever the food is, and then people would help themselves. Or
Arctic roll.
Oh wow!
You'd have that for your pudding.
Blancmange or something. What's that?
Oh yes,
What's that stuff?
blancmange. There's blancmange, which I don't know. Nobody eats blancmange anymore, do they?
Probably
But
not.
it's that whole sort of dining thing. It was a thing where you would sit down,
Yeah.
you would eat as a family. It was communal, and
Yes.
at some point, and I think this probably started to set in the early 2000s, thereabouts. This thing stopped happening, and I noticed that new homes that were being built had a kitchen breakfast room rather than an actual dining room. And now, if you went to
Really?
buy a new home, and in fact, I'd probably go back and say over the last decade, unless it was a big house, there wouldn't actually be a formal dining room.
So
as
they
such.
wouldn't
So
even
it's
have that room at all. Wow.
no, because what's the point in it? If you think about it, that people used to stop having dinner at a dinner table, or they moved that dinner table to the kitchen if they had space. So then you ended up with this room that you might use once a week or when people used to come over.
Yeah.
It was used for entertaining rather than for the family to actually eat. So once you'd use it once or twice a month, or if you were like us and antisocial, never.
Never. Yeah. Wow.
Or you wanted a fondue party. Now that was a thing.
Brilliant. That.
Have you ever been to one?
No, but it's cheese, isn't it? It's a big thing in the middle of the table with
That
must be either candles under it or plugged in or something, and it's
You used to buy them, yeah. You could buy a
Boiling-
plug-in.
boiling cheese for some reason, and then you dip other things into it, and it's,
And then eat this. I mean, it just sounds like a terrible concept, doesn't it? Because
dangerous as well, like,
yeah, I mean,
molten.
molten cheese.
imagine if that spills and everyone's
God.
scarred for life then with cheese burns. You have been scarred for life with cheese burns. There's probably
Please get in touch.
Yeah, it's probably
Send
wonderful.
photos. But no, so the fondue party, the hostess trolley,
prawn
serving
cocktails.
hatches, prawn cocktails, the whole sort of concept of sitting in a room specifically that only had one purpose, and that was to eat. and that just died off. And I wonder if it was an American thing, because was dining of that type, eating in a kitchen was always an American thing, I believe.
Right, or in front of the telly or something.
Yeah. So I guess TV dinners became more of a thing, and then
restaurants maybe as well. Right? I mean, maybe as people, I suppose, became a bit more affluent, then rather than faff around and cook everything at home, you just go to a restaurant, wouldn't you, with your mates, and it's probably even a higher fanciness level than doing it at home. Right, let's go to a restaurant. So maybe
I guess that was when there started to be an influx of more sort of affordable restaurants, things like Bernie and Bernie and
brilliant
Toby Carver and all these sorts of sort of cheap things now. And again, that's definitely a thing. I remember when I first visited America in the mid-early 90s, and I was astonished that they would eat out almost every night.
Yes,
and it was not a thing that you would dress up.
No, yeah. And whereas it would have been for us, much
culturally, we would get eating out was seen as an event, a date, and you would go to an actual restaurant,
not a chain, just a local place,
or a curry house, obviously.
Oh yeah.
If you wanted something a bit more informal,
that might be a whole other episode. Curry, love curry.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The history of curry in the UK.
Yeah.
But as far as formal dining, that's just it's not a thing anymore.
No, I mean, certainly, even if I was invited, I wouldn't go to someone's dinner party, right? Like that. But I mean, I don't even think. Haven't been to a family thing for years and years and years. So,
I don't actually. So I have this thing. I detest eating around other people. I'm not going to go as far as calling it a phobia, but it's something I'm not very keen on.
Right.
And I wonder how much of that is down to having to sit around a table, and bear in mind I was one of 4 boys in this house.
Oh yes.
Listening to my older brothers
chomping
and chamming and just generally being just generally being uncouth. And I wonder if that,
wouldn't it?
that's some sort of residue trauma from my childhood that I can no longer. I really don't like sitting around a dining table. It's odd, really. You think about a dinner party as a concept. What we're going to do is we're going to sit around and we're going to talk while we're eating.
Yeah, it's actually a stupid plan, isn't it? It's like going on a date at the cinema, right? Seriously, how are you going to actually talk to that person?
Do you know? I know you're not a TV guy, but over here we have a show called First Dates.
Right.
Okay, and what they do is set in a restaurant in Manchester. It used to be in London,
right.
And they would the production company would line up a boy and a girl, or a girl and a girl, or boy and boy, whatever,
yeah.
And they would meet on a first date in this posh restaurant. And you just think, is there a worse place to sort of make an introduction to someone than in a restaurant when you're eating?
And if it's fancy as well, right? What you're gonna be cracking lobsters. That's not a good look, right? And what food you order is probably also scrutinised. Don't get the veal. If she's a vegan, then.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? And it's just that whole thing where they're sort of trying to have a conversation and one sort of, guarding their mouth with a hand. And it's just totally impractical, isn't it?
Yeah, how things change. It's probably like ancient Romans. Did they do that? I don't know.
Just blame them.
Yeah.
I think it's eating and masturbation are better off done.
In private.
In private, away from other people. Nobody wants to hear the noises going on with it either.
No, definitely not.
And I think on that sour note, I think we've been very rude on this edition. So
it's all good.
I do apologise. Please let us know if you think that our coarseness and is appreciated or not. I don't think it'll have any impact at all. Do you?
I reckon that people who listen to this, who probably read our books, probably already know who we are.
Yeah,
Good,
it's true.
good idea of what kind of thing makes us laugh. Keeps us amused in the wee hours, you know.
It's funny, isn't it? No matter how you can. I saw the term laddish behaviour, and I thought, is that something that men ever really grow out of?
Nah. I mean, if you do, then you're just a boring fart. Right?
You're just not laddish anymore. You're just sort of blokish. We'll go blokish. So you start off with laddish behaviour, then it just becomes blokish behaviour.
Yeah, slightly more mature, but yeah, still on that Beavis and Butthead level of.
You still just want to, chuckle up.
See tits and get on with your life. Yeah.
And on that note, I should probably commit formal dining, including fondue and hostess trolleys, to the retro list.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, 6 wonderful entries to the retro list this time. Yeah. So,
And we've been consistent with our timing, even though we killed most of the preamble. We're still running over time.
Yeah, been yapping on. We tried to sort of set it as 1 hour, but yeah, we missed that mark again. But no worries.
I think it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think,
get what you get.
You have a little button on your app that you use to listen to podcasts, and you just tap it and you can skip through.
That's right. If there's bollocks, just skip the bollocks button. On that note, yes, I suppose you should subscribe to the podcast on your podcast player of choice. It should be on all of them.
It is.
And you had this great idea the other day. Let's put it on YouTube, didn't you?
I did. Although I haven't checked the stats, I should imagine that nobody has seen that. The problem is with YouTube, which dawned on me only afterwards, is you get the adverts every.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, every 10 minutes, I think. It may even be less. And it's just not. It's not a pleasurable experience, really. So we may not continue with putting them on YouTube. Okay. This is a thing that we're actually having an internal meeting on the actual podcast itself. But if you've listened to it on YouTube, please let us know, and then we'll continue to post them up. But there's just so many other places that don't involve any adverts. I detest adverts with an absolute passion. So
we wouldn't even know what they are. You know, you could be talking about shampoo in the middle of our discussion about hedge porn, right? That's just gonna that's gonna take the edge off, isn't it? Yeah, it's just And I think that leads us on to say that at some point, when we have to talk about advertising, we just I don't think we're going to bother, are we? Oh God, no. I mean, can you imagine us reading a stupid prompt about mattresses or Squarespace or something?
But they do it now. I've noticed that with podcasts, they don't have an actual advert that you can sort of just skip past. Suddenly the presenter will just suddenly they'll change sort of the tenor of their voice, and they're talking about something, and then they go, do you know, this morning I woke up and I thought, my stubble is longer than it should be. You think, what the fuck is he going on about? And then they'll start banging on about a razor that they bought. 2 minutes.
Wow.
And of course, because it's the actual presenter, you don't know how far to skip forward.
That's just
sneaky,
cheesy, isn't it? Yeah, it's like the shopping channel. That's probably another episode, right? They used to have a channel just where you could go and buy shit, and you'd have to ring up. They'd be talking about this Diamante studded gnome for the garden or something for 7 hours. Like, imagine. And this is at 3 a.m. I suppose this is what people did before they had Instagram to scroll through and Twitter to scroll through. Right? You'd go and watch this fucking shit, and
from an evolutionary perspective, I guess there was a lot of people that would, 2 weeks later, there'd be a knock on the door and there'd be a parcel, and we go,
what the hell is
this? At 2 a.m. or you were drunk, you'd come back from a pub or club, and you'd ordered something from the shopping channel. I mean, now you do it on eBay or whatever.
Yeah, Amazon,
and some random shit turns up. But that must have been a thing.
Yeah, there's probably still wardrobes full of gym equipment, obscure gym equipment.
Do you remember the strapline was like, not available in the shops? And you think,
Right.
that's not a positive
Not a
thing,
good
is it?
thing. Yeah,
It's not available in the shops because it's shit.
crap. It's going to break, and because we don't really want to deal with the fallout.
Yeah, and the retailers don't want you taking the tap back to them. That's why they won't stock it. But if you're stupid enough to buy it at 2 a.m. after one too many whatevers, we're ranting now.
All right.
So yeah, so we're
Clean it up.
adverts. So we actually, do you know what we haven't talked about is, and I hope people have noticed that if they haven't, I'll be gutted that we're both invested in rather expensive microphones.
Oh yes, yes. Hopefully we sound like what's the word? Fucking velvet, right? We should
Velvet.
sound smooth, elegant, eloquent. All of
like
those.
a Galaxy bar,
We should be
like a bag of minstrels.
orally exciting you, and should sound great.
Oh, that's not a phrase that.
If you do appreciate the audio quality, do let us know.
If you would like Adam to orally excite you,
That's
dial 0898.
that's another thing, actually.
It is. Oh, we'll save that one for another
Let's
episode.
come back to that. Good stuff.
Yeah, so we've hit our. I think we've gone well over again, haven't we?
Well
But
over.
never mind. So yes, you were saying about leaving a review or subscribing.
Right, do that stuff. Leave a review.
do
Let
that
us
stuff.
know what you think. What is it? chat@retrolist.com is
Please.
our email
And
address.
Any sharing, because at the moment I think our listenership is pretty much limited to the people who read our books, which is fantastic. But obviously we'd like to broaden the market so we can talk shit to other people.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
actually, talking of the adverts and being completely honest, obviously the point of us doing this is so we can attract new readers, and we don't have to have Adam wanging on about the Toastmaster 2000 pop-up, whatever. The Fondue 3000
fondue.
cheese warmer.
I suppose if anyone is marketing a fondue machine in 2023, then let us know and we can talk about a
That's the thing they do. This is what influencers do, apparently. And I don't think we'll ever be influencers. But you ask for them to send shit to you, and you try it out, and you go, yeah. So Adam and I, we independently held fondue parties last night, and no one turned up. And Adam now has
12
90%
gallons.
burns across his groin.
Yeah, God knows what happened.
He was flicking through the Argos catalogue, got to the shower section.
There was a disturbance in the void, and cheese everywhere. Excellent. The word influencer makes me cringe, right? So let's not go that route. But it could happen. Could happen.
Yeah, who the hell we're going to ever influence? I think we're probably influencing people to switch off now.
Probably.
So,
Probably.
So please leave reviews. Please spread the word. Tell all your friends, family, people you don't like, whoever. But we'd appreciate every share, every comment, nice comment. Obviously, if you don't like us, then we'd rather not know. To be frank,
Yeah, just keep it to yourself. Like your mum says.
Keep it to yourself.
If you've got nothing nice to say, then say nothing.
Exactly. And as we know, mothers know best.
Indeed.
There we go.
On that
Right,
note,
that's it for this episode. Yeah. This is goodbye from me.
and it's goodbye from me. Talk to you later.
Bye now.